Good afternoon.
Good evening.
We are very late today. We're very sorry. It's
We
been
are.
a very, very busy day,
It's
isn't
been
it?
a beautiful day though. Have you been out yet?
I can see outside. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Edward and I crossed the ferry earlier.
Did you?
Yeah, I didn't get out, which I probably should have done.
Oh.
It was the only time I've actually been able to sit there and relax for 5 minutes.
Did you relax or did you think and talk? And
No,
work?
I did. We talked work, yeah.
So you weren't really.
But it was
relaxing.
more relaxed than I've been the rest of the last 3 weeks.
It has been a bit manic. In fact, we should really talk about that before we get onto house prices. So, what has the property market done in the first 3 weeks of this year?
The property market has been extremely good. Extremely good. And what is still happening is the number of properties on the market is still ridiculously low, and the number of buyers is still mad high. So that obviously leads to supply and demand. It leads to high prices, leads to quick sales, and I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. Even if the stock levels come up, I still think prices will either remain high or keep going. I heard in a podcast the other morning that it wasn't in this country, but the reason being is that over the last 2 years, countries have borrowed so much money that I think the US has borrowed $4 trillion, and therefore
Is that even a number?
so there's $4 trillion more now in the US economy than there was. And if you put that into mortgage terms, actually you can then borrow 18 trillion worth because it's 4x. So actually there's going to be 18 trillion more money in terms of if all that 4 trillion goes to property. So therefore prices are only going one way for a while.
Especially in our market, there's a lot of money still out there. There's a lot of people that have made a lot of money. In fact, actually, I saw a stat. It was something like there are twice as many billionaires in the world now than there were at the beginning of the pandemic.
It's amazing. I heard something today as well that if so the average wage in a bar in England, if you just walked in and took it, is about 28,000.
Is it?
In a bar, which is
Quite
high,
yeah.
But maybe the bar owner is often in there. Don't know.
It's about £14 an hour, so it's quite high.
Yeah, it is. Might be London. If Jeff Bezos is sat in there,
Oh, I heard the same thing, yeah.
the average wage is well over $1 million a year.
And just by putting Jeff.
Just
So
by
actually, it's
putting
silly
Jeff
to talk
Bezos
about
in there.
averages, isn't it? It really is.
I don't know how big the bar is.
It's maybe only just him and him and the barman in there.
Yeah, Mr. Bezos can come drink with me anytime, right?
So I started Googling over the weekend to see what's the
That's
average.
dangerous.
It is.
My wife does that.
I know, I'm dying, apparently. What's the average house price now, and what has it done over the last 50 years? And actually, the data was harder to find than I thought. So I spent about 2 hours with my assistant this morning trying to get hold of this data. And there were lots and lots of different types of data, and some of it was completely different. For example, if you include London, it obviously excludes it. If you exclude London, if you include Scotland. So what we've done is we've found the average house price every year, based in December every year, for the last 50 years in the UK. And the results are actually pretty astonishing. So if you bought a house in 1970 for £4,000, which is what the average house was that year.
Some of us weren't alive then.
I was alive.
Yeah.
It's now worth £268,000 from 4,000.
But I know of some huge outliers within this. That I
massive.
I know of a local house that was bought for 11,000. I'm not sure of the year. I think it was early 80s.
It's about 30 years, so yeah, it is.
Yeah, and we've just sold it for 1.1 million, I think.
What was it bought for?
11,000.
Right, so it's had 4 decades. If it doubled every year, 11, 22, 40, no, we're nowhere near. Nowhere near.
No.
So I was trying to think, actually, we've had 5 decades here, so 4, 8, 16. No, because it jumped up to...
It certainly doesn't double every year.
No. For a long time, as some of you who are the same age as me and older will remember, it used to double every 10 years, which is about an average yearly increase of about 7%. So that's usually what you could say a house was worth. So from about 1850 to about 1950, you could guarantee that every decade you looked at, a property would have doubled in price.
It's not a million miles off from 80s, 90s, noughties,
No.
10s.
No, but there was a big jump in 2007, And then some regions, this is averaged out, but some regions have only just recovered from the 2007 crash. Well, say crash, but
Yeah,
you know,
look at that.
big dip. Because it went up so massively that it was actually a bubble. And then
It took 7 years.
yeah, some places have taken longer. In fact, London, well, they're saying London is actually risen now above the 2007 drop, even though it's had a tough couple of years. It's still above 2007. So actually, if you bought a house in London in 2007, you're probably okay now. But I mean, my sister bought a
For
house
you
in.
Londoners listening.
When did she buy a house? Probably was about then, and immediately got into negative equity within like
Yeah.
a year. So I think she bought it. Was it about 120? Then it suddenly was worth 100. Just a little terraced house, and it took her about 6 years to get back out of negative equity. And I would argue 6 years of paying your mortgage, I'd probably just rather have sold and taken the 20 grand hit. But you don't know what's going to happen, do you? So I think what is interesting is that property is still a very safe bet. And
Definitely.
properties in the Lake District, I think, defy all these figures because what you're doing is you're taking a very scarce number of properties and you've got a big pool of very wealthy buyers wanting them. And when you've got that combination, you're not going to get the knocks and the blows that, say, a terrace property in Doncaster might have if a local large employer closes.
Yeah, definitely. It's only going one way, isn't it?
You were offered a house, weren't you, a few years ago on Vicarage, like a local occupancy housing
Oh,
association
that's a
house.
long time ago.
Yeah. So how much was that worth then?
170, I think.
Was it?
I think.
Has it gone up in value?
I've no idea.
What do you think, if you could remember it?
I think by the council's definition, it has to go up by the inflation every year. I think that's how they work it out.
Inflation's on 5% now, isn't it?
Yeah, so I think that's how they work out the value. Because actually at the time it was worth a lot. It was probably worth more like 250.
Yeah. So
That was like 10 years ago.
it was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yeah. I don't think our Middle Entrance Drive residents were very happy at 5% here.
No.
So some people have bought really cannily, haven't they, over the years? I mean, when I was a kid, you know, the Lake District was a nice place to be, but it didn't have the cachet it has now. I mean, I remember Bowness feeling very kind of down at heel. You probably don't remember it like that, do you?
No.
Bowness now has got some beautiful shops and some gorgeous restaurants, and that has really elevated
it. Could be slightly
elevated.
elevated.
The signage is a bit of a problem, I think. And down by the front on the glebe, I think that needs addressing a bit.
If someone could, well, someone did buy it, didn't they? Don't know what they're doing with it.
The Aquarius.
The Aquarius. That could be amazing.
Could be. And then you've got the what's it called? Wheelhouse and the ship in. So it does all need, no offence for
Boardwalk's a
watching
good
it,
start.
it all needs smart
And
and
Boaters Bar.
boaters. Yeah, that is very good down there. And Driftwood, that looks really pretty now.
Yeah.
So it's all starting to move in the right direction. But it went, you know, compared to when I was a kid, it was scruffy. It was Blackpool, you know. And I think, but Ambleside, Troutbeck, Hawkshead. Actually, I think what happens is when the very busy places like Bowness start upping their game and you've got better places to eat and shop, then actually places like Hawkshead and Coniston sometimes lose out because all of a sudden it's now nice to live around that side of the lake. And so it feels too much out of it to live sort of Coniston and Hawkshead, unless you want to live in a very quiet area. Isaac's just come in and he actually does live in Coniston. Do you like it
On
nice and
Coniston.
quiet?
I
On
love
Coniston
it.
Water,
In
yeah.
the summer, it's very loud. The sound travels over the water.
To your house.
To my
I'm sure you send
chalet.
it back just as loud, Isaac.
I do, with the speakers on.
Very loud. I haven't heard Coniston called loud before, but I'll go with it.
Summer.
All those nightclubs. The strip. The Coniston strip.
Well,
You've only got 3 pubs.
It's like
There's
Magaluf.
the new hotel, well, the renovation of the waterhead, the electricity or water pump is that loud, you can hear it. at my house
Really?
as well, when it's across the lake.
If you can't hear what he's saying, he's just talking about the water pump being really loud.
So if you're listening, please turn the
21st
water
century
down.
problems in
Don't
Coniston.
know if it's a water pump.
I mean, saying Coniston, the most expensive house ever sold in Coniston until a year and a half ago was 800,000 or just over. And we sold a house there for 3 million. So there are some areas that once you have one really good sale like that, there's a ripple effect because actually the next one down that might have been worth 600,000, what's that worth now? 2 million, 2.5 million. We went to see somebody the other day, didn't we, that thought their house was worth 2.5 million, not in Coniston, and we valued it at 4. Genuinely, having done lots of research, and there's lots of different parts to the property, and it is worth 4 million. Now that's a life-changing amount of money for them, you know, the difference. They want to help their children out, and so I suppose if you are sitting on a house that you bought back in these years here, when I was a little kid, sort of in the 70s or the 60s, and you haven't had it valued for all that time, and even if you haven't had it valued in the last 2 years, now's the time to update that.
Definitely.
Because you could be thinking, well, I only paid 20,000 for it, or even if you paid 200,000. You don't know what it's worth now, and the changes that you've inevitably made over the last few decades, we can give you some feedback on what our buyers would think of that.
Might be time to retire now, not in 5 years.
Retire, remove.
With that difference.
Oh, we can, that difference could help.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you haven't had a valuation recently, then do let us know, and we'd be very happy to pop round, have a cup of tea, Yorkshire please, and just give you our thoughts. And we're not very good at selling, are we? We're good at selling houses, but we're not good at selling ourselves. So we'll just sit and have a chat with you.
But especially at the moment, quite often our advice is just to hold out for a little bit. Sometimes it's not, but
it's
it can
timely,
be
isn't it?
to hold out. Yeah.
Yeah. So these figures here, I'm going to turn into a PDF, and I'll put it on this comment thread.
Can't wait.
Well, this is the kind of stuff that excites me. Actually, I really like a good spreadsheet. So,
Got to say, when you've not lived for a lot of those years, it becomes more.
Where were you born?
Yeah.
So the average price in the year you were born was 50. What's that say? 53,000. That dropped, didn't it? Look at that. Just realised it goes 55, 59, 57, 50. You're born, and suddenly the bottom drops out of the market. 53.
Yeah, the country's not worth as much.
And then your 53,000 didn't double until 2002. Actually, that is 10 years.
Yeah.
And then it doubled again in, just last year.
2020.
Well, yeah, in 2020.
Yeah, but there was a big dip.
So it was
There
18.
was a crash, there wasn't there?
Yeah, but I'm just looking at from 2002 to 2020.
Yeah, but
it took 18 years to double
but if you
again.
take out the 7 years that it took to get back.
Yeah, but you can't take 7 years out, can you?
I know, but
They
that's,
happened. Just not being realistic there, are you? So yeah, I think it's interesting. In fact, we should call this post, what was the average house price the year you were born?
that's
Can you guess?
very snappy.
I think it is snappy. And on that note, we'll say goodbye. Thank you for watching us so late in the afternoon, and hope you have a really nice evening. And thanks for watching this Ask AJ.
Good night.